The myth is cardio will work. We're doing a lot of cardio and a little bit of weights. We need to pick up heavier weights. We need to do a little less of that cardio and combining highs and lows, like walking every day. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting right now, not standing. And we sit so much. Even if we stand, it's a little bit better, but we need to walk every day, just like flossing your teeth.
Welcome to the Dr. Ashley Show.
Welcome to the Dr. Ashley Show. I'm Dr. Ashley, and today I am so excited to share our time together with hormone balancing fitness expert Debra Atkinson. She's the founder of Flipping50, the first and only exclusively made for menopause fitness membership in the world. She is a best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and international subject matter expert and speaker. She is a 40-year fitness and health educator, flipping her 60th this year. Welcome to the show, Debra. I am so excited to have you here with me today. I know
Thank you so much for having me.
I would love for you to start just sharing your personal story, and I'd love to learn how it influenced the advice and support that you offer to other women in the age group that you focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So going way back, I never ever thought I would be a fitness professional growing up. Didn't have any interest in really sports or fitness or healthcare on my radar. I was going to be first a vet. I wanted to live in the woods and the jungle and have chimpanzees. And then I realized Marriott is my idea of camping, so that's not going to work. And then I was a graphic designer. Really, I had a notepad and a pencil in my hand since I was in first grade. And so everybody kept saying it. I kept nodding my head. And, I'm 2 years into it, and I had started walking with my mother, believe it or not, the summer before I went away to college. By the end of the summer, I was a jogger and, became a quote unquote runner. And I did not fit in with graphic designers who smoke and drink and stayed up all night. And this was in the early 80s. And I just was like, I don't know that I belong here. Love art, but not sure this is what I want to do or how I want to live, if this is what it's all about. So I stuck one foot in physical education, left one foot in graphic design. But by the end of the semester, I was sure that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to empower people. And it wasn't even then, and so I was a little insightful, I'll say, about my younger self at 20. It wasn't about helping people look a certain way, but it was the empowering way that I felt that I'd never felt going out for high school sports. I was just better at everything. I slept better. I was a better student. I was a better employee at that point, but I knew that I could help people, enjoy every role that they had better and to really feel much more alive. And fortunately, I had some really great instructors who passed that on, and knowing that I could do that and make a bigger difference in helping somebody else express whatever else their higher self and energy was. That's why I changed. So I was raised by older adults, significantly older adults. My adults played cards with my friends' grandparents, older adults. And, so when you're raised by conservative older adults, you end up going to Saturday night dinners and having a lot of Shirley Temples and conversations with adults. And so in college, I was given older adults in our exercise clinic, and I was matched with our alumni and faculty, and I could converse with them, and it was comfortable for me, and I enjoyed it. They enjoyed it. And I didn't realize I was actually doing research for what 30 years later would be, Flipping 50. And Flipping 50 is an accident, by the way.
Really?
So
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So at 49, I had a bit of a midlife crisis, in a good way. I decided consciously, I'm either going to stay here and love this college town and house and where I'm at, kind of a big fish in a little pond, because everybody knows me. I've taught aerobics on every possible stage and church basement over the last 30 years. Or I'm going to have a bigger reach and stop complaining about what I see could be changed and better in the fitness industry and actually make some of the changes. So I quit everything, safety, security, TIAA CREF funds and said, okay, I'm going to take an online business and teach health and fitness pros, the ones with the education and the heart to stay in this business, that they can make a living at it. Because at that point, and still many today, they can't. It's a hobby for people. We're losing the good ones. And I was an instructor in kinesiology for 15 years at a university. I saw it happen all the time. Those that were 4.0 students would come back to me a couple of years later and say, could you write another letter of recommendation? And they were like, I got to get a real job. I can't make a living doing this. And there's an ethical way to market and to sell. And that's what I wanted to teach them, because every consumer wants to find the good ones. We're looking for them, but they often find marketers who really can't help as much. So as soon as I quit, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I can't just be teaching marketing and sales how to build your business unless I'm running one and proving this is how I'm doing it. This is what's working right now. So I'm like, I have to pick a niche. Well, I'd been working with baby boomers, primarily women, because don't we ask for instructions just a little bit more often, right?
Usually
And so I chose the boomers who were at that point saying, hey, my doctor has just said, welcome to menopause. What do you expect? You'll be gaining weight. That's just a part of it. And baby boomers weren't willing to settle. Nobody was talking about the difference in menopause fitness versus other fitness for young men, for young women even, or that lots of studies are done on mice and we just don't have that hormone profile. So that's where Flipping 50 was born, and it has just taken off. So women are so welcoming somebody who's an expert, who gets it, who uses science based on them.
What is the main difference of menopause fitness?
We no longer have the hormones we had. We never will have them again. So if we're trying to eat the same way and exercise the same way as we did when we were 30, we will never be in good fitness, either for now or for 10, 20, and 30 years from now. So it really is honoring what's our hormone status right now at this moment. How do we preserve muscle, bone, and our brain health so that we can have the energy that we want right now? And we also are not sabotaging our health and longevity later. I don't think anybody wants to live to 100 if they're not strong, living it, choosing to do the things they want to do and independent. So it's about honoring what's going on right now. So we really have to change the type and the timing of the exercise. We have to look at what's true for you right now, because even if I said, here's the After 50 fitness formula for women, it's a blueprint. You have to go through one of those teen Tiger Beat magazine's quizzes and say, yes, okay, then go this way, or no, okay, here's where I need you to go. And this is what we need to do right now.
So you're saying that it's customized. It's a different picture after menopause, but then
Absolutely.
in and of itself, it's also customized.
Exactly. Yes. So every woman who comes in, whether they're a private client or in a program, I say, listen, we're co-collaborating here. I can give you a path, and what you're doing is you're a study of one. Each of us is, because every woman's path to get to this moment she's in right now has been different. She's had a history of different ways of eating, of diets, of thoughts about diets and eating and exercise. And that's all going to affect her. She may choose to or choose not to use hormone replacement. She may be in love with exercise and be overzealous. She may never have loved exercise and be reluctant to start it. And we've got to find, where are you? What's going to work? Yes.
Okay. So you've been in this field for a really long time, it sounds like.
40 years.
40 years. A lot of it teaching deep into kinesiology. How do you feel that this combination of experience has really shaped your approach to fitness?
So uniquely. I've seen it on all sides. So first of all, I'm about to flip 60. So I'm in the boat. You may be doing the research, writing the programs, but we don't get to be immune to, hormonal changes or our own genetics. And just so we're all clear on that, genetics only, they're 5 or 10% of what we actually do. It's the rest is lifestyle. But it's helpful to know what are your genetics so you can do that alternative lifestyle. But I'm there. And then the other thing is, my ability to know from having been a personal training director, been in management positions in health clubs, I know what owners and managers of businesses want to happen. I know what the consumer wants, and I know what it's like when you're hiring training and firing trainers. I know what they think they need to know. And then I've taught it at a university level and been a subject matter expert for certification exams. So health coach, personal trainer, and medical exercise specialist. I sit on the boards in the groups that write test questions. I know what they know. I know what we need them to know. I know the gap.
What is that gap?
Well, in a certification, a base certification, and in a 4-year degree at a university, there is never, ever, ever any mention of the difference between females and males in training. There's
No
never,
way.
no way, yes way. That's exactly
That's so
right.
wild.
And there's no mention of the uniqueness of menopause. And if you look at, so I've got a TEDx talk and I talk about this there. So we should probably put the link into that. But,
Sure.
there is 39% of all sports medicine and exercise science research features females as subjects, 40%. And some of us could say, okay, well, that's 40%. It's 39 actually, but 40 to 60, we've had worse odds, elsewhere, maybe it's in earning or whatever. But yet when you think about a woman goes through 7 unique hormonal stages in her life, a male does not. He goes into puberty, he comes out on the other end in andropause, and his landing in andropause is gentle and smooth and declining, and ours is like, go to the cliff, jump off the cliff. We have a dramatic change in our hormones. But women, reach puberty. We may be young adults not wanting to get pregnant, young adults wanting to get pregnant. There's the fertility is not even one of these, but 7 major hormone changes. And each of them demands a unique exercise prescription. We don't do with a postmenopausal woman what we do with a young 20-something. There are different priorities. There are different things to consider. And we're not getting it. So the research is growing, but it has a lot of room for growth. And coming back to certifications and to degrees, so no intention of throwing certifications under the bus or 4-year degrees. I mean, college is a business. And, we now sign contracts basically with parents. We will get your son or daughter out in 4 years. That means there's no wiggle room. They need to take a certain coursework, the precursors, the prerequisites, the courses. There's not a lot of choice for them, even if they're interested in it, to take additional coursework about a specific population. Yeah.
So then if there's not clear information between men and women, there's probably a lot of myths when it comes to aging and fitness that women probably need to let go of. And I'm sure that these myths impact their approach to health and wellness. And I'd love to get your thoughts on that. What are the most common myths that we as women have? Because we've been given all of the same information that seems to work for men, but doesn't work for us, depending specifically on our age.
Yeah, a couple of them are, number one, I think women all still gravitate toward cardio. I do think we're getting better. So I'm really, buoyed up when I go to a club and I see the young women in the weight room, and the ratio was pretty good. I live in a university town. So talking about Tempe, Arizona, that's a good thing, because potentially, they're more educated. They're getting sooner the message that strength is actually beautiful. It's not skinny, it's strong. And, so we're doing well, I think, with our younger generation. But I do think there's a gap between these 20 somethings who may be populating the gym in the right space and older adults. So we don't come to it, I think, until we're broken, we're nervous, we're scared. We get a diagnosis of, say, osteoporosis. And the first thing someone will tell you if you have that is you should lift weights, you need to get stronger. At least now we're hearing a little bit of that more. So we overuse cardio because a lot of times when we want to start exercising, the first motivation is weight loss and or body composition change. So more muscle, less fat so that we appear leaner. We're still in this mode of shrinking. I think we still want to shrink. We want to get smaller. We somehow, and nowhere else in our life do we need to do that, right? We need to get bolder. We need to get louder. We need to have a voice, and I think that it's really important that we examine for each of us ourselves, how we might default to that and or to the thinking, am I too old? Is it too late for me to gain lean muscle? I have a 67-year-old client who actually texted me the other day. Now, imagine if you run a business, you want testimonials. So many of you watching can identify. But she texted me and said, hey, can I be a testimonial? Because I think I'm a 67-year-old success story for you. And I said, well, of course. Yes, you can. So I get it back and realize she's dropped a significant amount of weight since May when she started doing a certain kind of programming that I was kind of beta testing with a small group, and she's continued it. And so she gave me this glowing testimonial about how she's lost weight. She couldn't, doing any other thing. And she was just loving the way she was feeling. So not only losing the weight, but she was shocked to find she was more energetic. She wasn't just losing weight and then getting more tired, which often happens. I got another text from her at Christmas time. It was kind of her card to me. And she said, since that testimonial, I've lost 15 more pounds and I've gained 3 more pounds of lean muscle mass at 67. You've had a significant impact on my life. And I think we don't believe that, that doing less cardio and doing instead strength training and walking. So I don't want anybody to think I don't want you to move, but there's a big difference between what we learned in the 70s and 80s. And if we're talking to women over 50, many of you were taught moderate exercise, and there couldn't be anything worse for your cortisol levels. That moderate exercise is more likely to elevate your cortisol, which is what we call a catabolic hormone. It breaks muscle down, and your anabolic hormones like estrogen has gone to Tahiti and didn't bring you along, right? And so we don't have the stimulus we did have naturally. So we notice it dramatically, I think, and we start seeing, energy, lots of ways, fluid, hydration, lubrication in many places in our body, but including our joints and ligaments. And when that gets our attention, then we know, don't have the muscle tone I used to do, doing the exercise that used to work, and you won't ever again. We have to take up the slack. So we have to lift weights a little bit more. So the myth is cardio will work. We're doing a lot of cardio and a little bit of weights. We need to pick up heavier weights. We need to do a little less of that cardio and combining highs and lows, like walking every day. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting right now, not standing, and we sit so much. Even if we stand, it's a little bit better, but we need to walk every day, just like flossing your teeth. Or maybe I should say brushing your teeth because I'm not great at flossing, but something that we would not think is even negotiable. It should be that, because it's just exchange for how much we sit and automate everything today. And then we've got to strength train, but not with the pink dumbbells. We've got to lift something heavy, or heavy enough, as heavy as you can safely lift. And that's an important distinction. And each of us has to probably say, what conditions do I have that might get in the way of me lifting heavy? And also we have to do a joint by joint. I mean, this shoulder may not be able to lift heavy, but can I lift heavy with my lower body? Then I should definitely do that. So we've got to think about not just today, it's a 2-for-1, but what will your 85-year-old self thank you for? And one of the biggest surprises, Ashley, would be exercise less, but make it count. So volume is extremely important for women over 40. But the way we calculate volume is multiple sets of exercise to fatigue, heavier weight. So we're looking at the intensity times, the volume of exercise being the amount of weight we lift or the number of sets that we lift it for. Those things are really important. And then take your recovery days, because being less resilient, simply because the muscles, the ligaments, the joints are a little bit older, you need more recovery time. And that doesn't mean you'll be less fit. It means if you give yourself the recovery time you need, you'll be more fit, potentially shockingly doing less exercise.
So I'm so glad that you're sharing this, because that's exactly what we recommend to our clients who are a part of our weight loss program. 30 minutes every day, minimum of brisk walking, not 5 days a week, but 7 days a week. I'm someone who I just love so much, Mark Sisson. You're probably familiar with him and his book, The Primal Blueprint. I had him on the show, and he says that walking is the new sleeping. And he is just out to create this movement of pulling runners back and letting them enjoy walking. And so I think that we're just getting more and more out there with the understanding of how key moving our body is, and then lifting weights. I've been listening to your materials, and I love how you say we need, as women, to stop lifting the pink weights. We need to get out there and just lift heavy things, no matter what it is. And we hear from clients all the time saying, gosh, I just feel so much better when I focus on overbearing weight lifting exercise rather than just being on the elliptical and doing what I like to call chronic cardio.
Exactly.
It just doesn't benefit the body. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
Hey guys, just a quick reminder about GLUCOCUT+, my specially formulated supplement to support your metabolism throughout your fat loss journey. With patented ingredients, it aids in consistent weight loss and boosts energy by supporting your thyroid, burning fat, and maintaining lean muscle mass. Weight loss can stress your body, but I created GLUCOCUT+ to have your back. Visit dr.ashleywellness.com and use code Ashley10 for 10% off your first purchase or 20% off your first subscription order with free shipping. Plus, enjoy a 30-day money-back guarantee. Back to the show.
I know that each workout schedule must be customized, but could you give us an idea of what might be an ideal schedule for some woman over the age of 40? And does it change as we get into different decades, 50s, 60s? And what do we adjust?
Yeah, great question. A loaded question. So first, let's just start with a base. So if you think about in your mind an equilateral triangle, right? So we got, does everybody remember that geometry? It's the only one thing I do remember, right? So all sides equal, but it sits like a pyramid. And on the very bottom is what we've just discussed, the walking, the moving daily. And for women, I think it's important for men too. I think it's important for everybody. But for women in midlife, as estrogen changes and cortisol goes up, so does insulin need to go up. We're not as sensitive to it. We're insulin resistant. Women tend to get that pre-diabetic diagnosis, and it's shocking. And to many of them, it's also insulting. It's like, I have watched my diet my entire life. I've exercised my entire life. Are you kidding me? Like me? And yet this is about the hormonal changes. So you've got to look at, I happen to have long sleeves on right now, but I have a continuous blood glucose monitor on.
I do too, right?
You
here.
do. Perfect, right? And so there you go. There's your testimonial, right? So two of us not only talking to you about doing it, but doing it ourselves. And I do that several months during the year just as a check-in, and then run away with, here's what I learned. Now I have to actually just apply it, right? And know. But the walking comes back to, we're really supporting our blood sugar levels, especially walking after meals and or walking that brisk 30 minutes, it all counts in looking at, this is going to decrease my blood sugar level as well as help sleep and so many other things. And if you're lifting and you have more muscle every time you go for that walk, or you're just moving around your house, you are moving more muscle mass. Muscle is a sponge for blood sugar. So you're like amplifying the results you're getting every time. You're lifting to create more lean muscle so that then when you move it in any other way all day long, you're supporting your blood sugar control in that way too. It's a bonus.
Mhm.
So walking is anchored. Walking is just do that first, and then I'll give you some criteria. So we use, if you're walking every day and your energy is good, you're sleeping well, you don't need recovery, you're not on the couch because you're so very tired or exhausted, you're ready for more. So then you come up, if you ever feel like, oh my God, I'm exhausted, I work out and then I have to just rest for a few days, or I'm doing less the rest of the day. That is not the goal. You're not going to break through and get better. You come back down. Let's peel layers away and figure out, do you need to talk more about your diet? Do we need to
Mhm.
look at supplementing? Why are we tired? That's what you need to do. So, but the second layer from the bottom is strength training. We anchor on twice weekly total body strength training. We don't break up a muscle group, so somebody who's asking, can I do it more frequently? The bang for your buck for metabolism is about 8 times higher when you do total body versus a body part. And we have to say, I'm not just my bones, I'm not just muscle and bone. I'm also my endocrine system. And this is the gap, one of the gaps again. So we don't discuss the endocrine system with students who are going to be trainers or fitness instructors. We don't arm women, young women with this. Here's when you cycle, it might be a better time of the month to work on strength training during this week versus
Mhm.
maybe do some more mobility work and take it a little bit lighter, do more walking during this week. We should be telling them that. And when you're postmenopausal, we also have to be saying, okay, I've got to strength train more. I've got to make sure that I'm doing that. We need more recovery between those times. So heavily strength training, avoiding the adrenal fatigue, the over cortisol by doing more on every day. Because if you're truly getting the stimulus that would stimulate metabolism by splitting up your routine, you're probably going long each day, and that doesn't give your adrenal system time to recover. So remember that it's everything. But the biggest check is, at every level, how do I feel? Do I have more energy after my workout than I had before? Do I have more energy during each day of the week because I'm exercising the way I am? And if the answer is yes and yes, you're on the right path. If it's no, I'm more tired, I'm just, couch compensating in between, we need to fix that right now. So, next level, we skip. We skip. So, we're going to go right up to the top of the pyramid. And the amount of time you spend in each shrinks, right? So,
Mhm.
at the very top of the pyramid is like icing on the cake. And this is getting breathless. These are your high intensity interval training intervals. And notice that there at the top, it's also the first thing that comes out. And you only go there if you're walking daily, you're doing your strength training twice weekly, and you're feeling great. I'm sleeping well. I'm starting to go in a better direction. I'm getting stronger and I'm having lots of energy. But at the very top is high intensity interval training. And if you're a woman who's in perimenopause, so we don't know exactly,
Mhm.
we never know, we're right in it, because we generally don't lab test, do we? Unless we're
Mhm.
missing a lot of periods or we want to get pregnant, we can't, and a lot of women will say, should I test my hormones? And my answer to that is always, well, let's talk about what are you going to do with the results? If it's just going to confirm that, yeah, I'm in perimenopause, there's probably no reason. If you're thinking, I do want to look and consider hormone replacement, then yes, of course, you're going to have to test. But it could either save you a little money or make sure that gets you thinking about why do I want to know this? Because your signs and your symptoms will tell you pretty well. But a woman in perimenopause, from early to late stage, needs absolutely to be strength training. The loss of muscle during that period is 27%.
Mhm.
27%. And if I gave you the stats for later in postmenopause, it's also big. But if we caught it at perimenopause, we wouldn't have that also big then. So we could stop it and prevent it. So lifting weights, if you're not in perimenopause, critical, crucial. So by 40, if you're not, it should be legally required. Okay.
Mhm.
Of all of us that we do that in order to have health insurance, maybe that's the answer.
Mhm.
And nobody's going to love me for that probably, but that's a really important distinction. So lifting heavy, however, I wouldn't necessarily advise every woman in perimenopause to do high intensity interval training because often it's the roller coaster ride. She's already really tired, potentially. If you're struggling with sleep and insomnia, you're going to do that during perimenopause, probably more than you would postmenopause. And so if you're struggling with those things, we don't want to put more on. You may be finding you're gaining weight, you're gaining even belly fat, but we can't exercise it off. We may need to rest and restore it off. We need to figure out, what else could you do? How can we get you better sleep? And those, there's 20 different things you can do to improve your sleep that may actually help. And walking is one, right? Helping with the belly fat and the insulin resistance. But if you are a woman in perimenopause and you're doing fine, about twice weekly, high intensity interval training. And interval training can be this: you're going high intensity interval training, getting breathless for 15 to 30 seconds, maybe 4 times. In between, you're resting completely. This is no more the Tabata, where you're going to go hard for 20 seconds and recover for 10 and back and forth, which, by the way, was done on elite male cyclists who were like 25 and working so hard they threw up between sets. Nobody wants to work that hard, right?
No.
And we're not young and male and athletic. We don't have that level of testosterone. It's ridiculous that immediately we all adopted it. And immediately, not incoincidentally, injury rates went up, like simultaneously 144% over the time.
Wow.
Our use of interval training went up because it is more wear and tear. Even if you're doing it on an elliptical, it's still more muscle damage because we're pulling and tearing on the ends to decelerate and accelerate. But definitely if you were jumping rope or box jumps, it's going to be harder. So think about, can you do or should you do high intensity interval training, or spend the majority of your time walking? And maybe you need yoga to decrease your cortisol levels to help you lose weight. Never ever in the 90s would I have thought I did that. I remember seeing the cover of a box saying fat loss yoga. And I just thought, what great marketing is that? But it's like, this is ridiculous, and I'm sure I probably made a point of it to an audience somewhere. But now I'm just thinking they were way ahead of their time. Maybe they knew more about cortisol than I did, because that could be very true. It's not really about calorie burning. It's about optimizing the hormone balance and the impact that your exercise has on hormone balance, because hormones will determine, are you storing fat or burning fat? You have to remove the obstacle. And if the obstacle is cortisol, decreasing it, you may find, I'm doing far less exercise, feel far better, and the weight's just coming off. And that's really where we want you to be. But back to postmenopause, you're through the roller coaster ride and you may be more flatlining, right? Depending, your hormones are not as high, but you're not on a ride anymore. Women postmenopause may be able to do up to 4 bouts of high intensity interval training. Still twice weekly strength training. But the reason is they're smoothed out. They're probably evened out, figured out how to get more sleep. And they do need quick, fast twitch exercise. They need to move their feet fast for reaction skills, because we will lose that. We lose it faster as we age than we lose that slow twitch muscle fiber. We need reaction skills. We need to get breathless to maintain our VO2, because we will lose that at an accelerated rate between 60 and 70 than we did, 40 to 50 or 50 to 60 even. So it's a toleration. And if you're doing 4 times a week HIIT, I would suggest we don't want them all to be really high impact, but look at doing it on a bike and doing jumping other days and getting in a pool and doing it. But there's lots of ways any mode of exercise can be made high intensity.
If Tabata isn't the answer, what are those intervals? Let's say, give an example of getting on a bike, a stationary bike. I like that just because for me personally, I was a professional ballet dancer. My knees and my hips just won't let me run and sprint the way that I would love to. So what is a good example of that?
That's a great question. And we should come back to Mark Sisson. So he actually wrote about this, and he was one of the first to start talking about this. There's 2, different protocols that you might use. The base is this. So first, we always start with progression. Instructors and trainers sometimes forget this, but your work interval, however long you're going to go hard, should be less than your recovery interval. I mean, that's the beginning of anything, and we may do more of a ratio of 1-to-1 as we progress because we're fully recovered. But it should be always based on you go as hard as possible to get breathless, maybe 15 to 30 seconds. But if you're on a bike, it's probably going to take 30 because you got to bring that back up. You got to get the pedal and the gon. And sometimes you don't realize you're breathless until you stop that interval, right? You can do anything, but there is a little catch-up mode. But then you're going to recover by just maybe sitting, spinning very, very easily. And it might take a minute. So that would be, 1 time, 2 times the amount, could be 3 times, maybe 90 seconds. And that's wise. 1-to-1 might be you're going to go 30 seconds really hard and 30 seconds recovery. But the biggest answer, the best answer is don't let anybody impose that on you. If you can't close your mouth and breathe through your nose, you're not fully recovered. And when you start again, it will feel hard, but you may not be going the same pace. You may not be going against as much resistance. And what will make you fit? Going as fast as you can go, working against as much resistance as you can work will get you fit faster. Just feeling hard isn't really working to your best capacity. So I think that's a real good distinction. But what Mark has talked about, and I talk about this too, is an acronym. Instead of HIIT, it's called HURT, high intensity repetition training. And that's really what we're alluding to here, full recovery. So the studies on this show that if you get the breathlessness and then you take whatever you want and need for recovery, so you can breathe through your nose, even if it's up to 3 minutes, but you come back and do the 4 bouts of interval training at high intensity, you get just exactly as good a result, if not better, than someone who did really short rest, came back right now and did it again. So you still get the benefit. How much rest you take in between does not matter. So if you come back to the injury rate going so high, we get injured when we get sloppy and we get tired. So when you fully recover, you're probably less likely to get injured. And this is more important for something like jumping or high impact than it might be if you are, in a swimming pool or you're on an elliptical where it's harder to get hurt, but it's a good consideration. There's a study on postmenopausal women, and this was a few years ago, called SIT, sprint interval training. And this just shows you there's no, I don't think, magic about this, but it shows you there's lots of ways to slice and dice it, and your brain may need some variety. So you can throw in any of these. But the SIT training looked at on spinning bikes, took women, did an 8-minute warm up, and there was also an 8-minute cool down. And in between, they did 8 seconds really hard and 12 seconds recovery for 20 minutes straight.
Wow.
And yeah, and it goes really fast. I mean, it sounds really, this is tedious, right? But essentially it's, 3 of those cycles, 20-second total cycles per minute, and it goes fast. You have to pay attention. You should probably have some really good music on, but you're just going hard. And they found that the postmenopausal women actually gained a little lean muscle tissue in their legs, which when we're doing HIIT, we often don't hear there's no gain of lean muscle tissue. It's all about focus on the fat. Yep. But they also lost total body fat and specifically visceral body fat. High intensity interval training can be really good for that. But I think the caveat we want to point out is not if you're already stressed.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So it sounds like to me, the ticket to success is listening to your body. Listening to your body help you determine what type of exercise you're going to be doing that day. And then once you get into that and you choose, you also have to listen to your body there to help you guide that exercise movement. And I think a lot of us have just followed what we're being told to do without listening to our bodies. I know myself, coming from the professional ballet background, I just would grit through it and not listen to anything. If I had a stressor fracture in my foot, who cares? I'm going to have to keep dancing on it. So I think for a lot of us women, it's hard and we haven't really listened to our bodies. And sometimes our bodies just don't want to move. I find that when we're carrying a lot of this belly fat, our hormones are shifted in a way that just want to encourage us to get fatter.
Mm-hmm.
And the fat mass kind of makes us feel lazy and tired. So it's hard to listen. When are we really needing to pull back and recover? And when do we need to push our body through that feeling so we can get to the other side? It's difficult sometimes.
Yeah, it is a dance. And what more perfect word could there be for
That's
you,
right.
right? But it's a dance. And I think you've got to look at what have I done up to now? Because my habits up to now have given me the results that I've got right now.
Mhm.
And committing maybe to a week of, I'm going to commit to a specific reset and see how I feel then. Because you can always come back to what's not working now if that's where you're at, right? So maybe it's, peeling back down on the pyramid and just coming back to walking and yoga as a reset. And like you said, listening. I think the more noise in your life, the more things you have to do, the more pieces of the puzzle, the harder it can be to listen. So pulling back and saying, just walking, paying attention to, am I tired? Like, do I really just need to go to bed right now instead of starting to watch this movie? Could I sleep? And am I thirsty? Am I hungry? I think when you have a lot of things going on in your life and just a lot of appointments on the schedule, including I'm lifting weights today or I'm doing HIIT today, if you can peel it off, you give yourself a little space to really listen. Yeah.
I like that a lot. Speaking of noise, there's a lot of noise around these injections, these peptides, so Ozempic, Wegovy, tirzepatide. And
Yeah.
it made me think about them when you talked about perimenopause and us potentially dropping 27% of our muscle mass.
Yeah.
And when we're looking at these drugs, we know that people drop weight, but I've seen research show 33 to 50% of the weight that we drop can be coming from muscle. And I feel like a lot of women in the perimenopause group are those who are going toward this drug. So what do you say to that?
Well, first of all, I think we're really vulnerable. So I think we've got to watch out for ourselves and we've got to watch out for our friends, our sisters, our colleagues, because we are vulnerable and we are being marketed to. Menopause has become a buzzword, right? If you
Yes.
are a woman in midlife and you're on any social media platform, we're getting marketed to all the time. And that word gets slapped on things, on products, on services, on trainers, credentials in 30 seconds, but is the knowledge there to help you? So I think watch for that. And we always have, we want it yesterday's yesterday. A client said to me once, I said, how soon do you want to get started? She's like, yesterday's yesterday, right? And, that can get us into trouble, I think, because it's going to, come back to haunt us. But there's actually a panel in the works at a convention called URSA coming up this spring. And it is the Health and Racket Association, club in the fitness industry, and they're looking at what is the role of clubs who are actually even giving this and stepping into and helping to reduce the obesity epidemic, but also paying attention to longevity. So, right now, I would say for a woman over 40, we cannot afford to lose muscle mass. We can't. And for a woman over 50, we double can't. For a woman over 60, we triple can't. The older you are, the risk of lean muscle loss is you will not get it back.
Yeah.
It's much harder to get back. And anytime you lose weight and you're losing a high percent of lean muscle mass, you are making yourself fatter. And when you think about that, that's not healthier. Muscle is like hormone replacement. It's an endocrine organ, essentially. It's helping you with cortisol levels. It's helping you with your insulin levels. And if we lose that, we're in big trouble. So if you're doing it, if you're contemplating doing it, make sure you're eating a high protein, high quality protein diet, and you're lifting weights to offset whatever else may happen.
Yeah, that's great advice. So we talked a little bit about lifestyle habits that are helpful as we continue to age, to probably all wrapped around preventing muscle mass degeneration and muscle mass loss. And we talked about briefly about sleep. We've talked a lot about exercise. What other lifestyle habits are most impactful for women over 50 to complement the fitness we've talked about and maintaining muscle mass?
There's two things that comes to mind that we haven't talked about related to exercise, but also other lifestyle. So we talked about the problem with cortisol and things and ways we might exercise that actually will elevate it. And one of those is finding ways to offset cortisol. So, and maybe that's combined with exercise or other things, but music, pets, sex, holding hands, getting a hug, take that as far as you want to. But I think making sure that you're getting oxytocin, you're getting serotonin, dopamine, your feel good hits, doing things you love. Many women don't do that and haven't. And left to 2 or 3 hours of free time, what would you do? That's a hard question for some women to answer because they used to have hobbies, but they don't anymore. And somebody said to me, how's your social life? The other day, I said, my what? My excuse me? Oh, and kiddingly, but I was like, interesting. I better take a look at that. But there are things that some of the cortisol comes from pieces of our lives that we're in middle ground, and we have maybe young children dependent on us, or even young adult kids still somewhat dependent on us. And we have aging parents, and our careers are maybe at the peak, maybe relationships, or we're looking at shifting there. There's a lot of things coming. And, so we can't get rid of all those stressors, and we wouldn't want to, right? The people we love are the biggest ones. And we can get a little bit more serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin, because when those things are high, cortisol can't be. So you can kind of stabilize it a little bit by doing things you love. And we're talking, you don't have to go to a 2-hour movie. You don't have to, you turn on music in the background, put it on in the shower while you're doing it. Just little things that you do for yourself can make a big difference. But I think the other one that we really haven't talked about, touched on it a little bit, is making sure you're getting adequate, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say adequate calories and adequate protein. I find, maybe you do as well, that a lot of the women in our communities who actually do want to lose weight, we're not a weight loss program, we never say it, but I will find them in a coaching call and they're asking questions about exercise with the result of, I still haven't lost any weight. And I'm like, did you know we're not a weight loss program? Are you getting stronger? It's tongue in cheek, and I'm teasing them, and I'm not, but I was like, do you realize what you just did? Yeah. They will, I believe, when they're optimizing body composition. If their body needs to release weight, it will be much easier if they're doing that. But I think that we have to look at eating enough and eating enough protein. And overall, I find that the people struggling with weight loss have actually slowed their metabolism so much because they've under-eaten for decades. And it takes a while. It takes, it's taken 7 or 8 years for a client of mine to lose 100 pounds, not because she wasn't doing the things, but it just took so long to mentally not continue to restrict and restrict and restrict. Yep.
Yeah, I was just writing an episode on, sometimes we call that reverse dieting, to slowly increase those calories over time. And that's actually what my PhD work was on, is looking at metabolism and what damage do we do when we chronically undereat, and how do we overcome that? So that's definitely a thing. One thing I wanted to mention, I was on this virtual breathwork session this weekend, and there were, I think, 500 people there. And they asked in the chat, what brings you joy? And I was surprised that so many people, hundreds of people, wrote back, and they said getting out in nature, being outside, seeing the trees, listening to the birds chirp. So yeah, just like you said, finding joy doesn't mean that you have to go out and go on a Hawaiian vacation, although wouldn't that be so fun?
Yeah, right.
Who would deny that? But it can
You'd
be as
write me
simple
a
as,
prescription for that, and we'll be best friends. Yeah.
yeah. But just getting outside and seeing the sun and being out in nature is something that can raise dopamine and shift those neurotransmitters. So I love that you mentioned that.
There is even, and gosh, this has been a while, but there is even a study to say a screensaver that is nature has benefits.
Oh.
Yep.
Wow. So if you can't get outside, just make sure
Yeah.
that you're looking at or listening to birds chirp.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
That's great. Well, I'd love for you to leave us with your key message of motivation for women over 50 who are looking to reset and tune up their second 50 with more energy and vitality. What would you share with them?
Let me share some words that we use kind of as our guiding moment, our mission statement, if you will. And that really, I was preparing for my first TEDx talk when I realized this is not my bigger message. And I couldn't throw it into that TEDx talk, but maybe there will be TEDx talk too.
I hope
And
so.
that is that the reason Flipping 50 is here is we believe there's no more powerful health influencer in the world than a midlife woman, because we are influencing at least 3 generations and sometimes 4. I've heard from some of you, depending on where you're at. But we influence at least 85% of all household decisions, purchases, and that goes for our health care. And I think it goes to your health habits. People are watching you. They will watch what you do so much more than, whatever you might say. So if you can't do it for yourself, you can't put yourself first, realize that you are leaving a legacy. It's just, what will it be, that you need to ask yourself. And here are the words that we use. We're not about, in our community, growing older. It's about growing bolder. We're not about looking forward to retirement. We're about rewirement. We want the women in this community to not be afraid of falls, but of stalls in their life. And, if that resonates with you, that's really who we are. It is about picking up weights. It's not about losing weight. It's about lifting weight. And when a woman lifts weights, she can weather things in her life better, the heavy things, and she can walk faster toward things she wants, and she walk faster away from the things that don't serve her.
Thank you so much, Debra. I love that. Where can
Thank you.
people follow you and learn more from you?
On social media, we're at Flipping50 TV, Flipping50 TV. And that's primarily Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And our website is flipping50.com. And it's either with numbers or letters. You'll get there in the same way, but no spaces.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Debra. That was great information.
Thank
I
you.
can't wait to share it with everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What great information Debra provided in this episode. I hope that you got lots of value. You understand a basic schedule as to what your fitness could look like every week. She just gave some great actionable steps. If you're listening to this on a podcast platform, please follow and leave a review. It really means a big difference to us. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe and leave a comment below. Did anything surprise you? Any more questions that it brought up in your mind? Please share below and I'll be sure to answer it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you check out the description. Included in there is a link to Dr. Ashley Wellness. If you're wanting to optimize your hydration, help support your blood glucose levels, your thyroid, your adrenals, especially during the process of dropping weight and keeping it off, then Dr. Ashley Wellness ELECTROLYTE and GLUCOCUT can really help to serve you. Remember, you've got to step up to make the change. Lead with your heart, train your mind, and do not negotiate with your body. I'll see you next time.